But yeah, let's talk about this first thing shared by
Oh, I see what he was talking about. I'll fix it.
V-Bunny23, it's called the Tech Dragon.
Yeah. Did you have a chance to look this over again, Jeremy?
The Tech Dragon?
Yeah, I looked over this one already.
Only briefly.
Because there's a lot here, and I don't know if we have time to actually go through all of the details of this, because V-Bunny, as you tend to make, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot in this dragon, but there was one kind of core mechanic of it that I think was interesting that I wanted to highlight on this, which was the tech roulette that you have here, which is almost it's almost Beholder-like, I would say, in that you just roll a d6, then it has a bunch of different like missile or rocket-based mechanics that fire out from it. But the core difference in the mechanic, and this is what I liked, is you roll a d6 and then it loads that piece of equipment, and then it has a number of times. So like you charge up, for example, the bowling ball launcher, and then it shoots 5 times before it goes again. So every time on its turn, it basically gets a new power that it does every turn, which I thought was a cool mechanic for a fight.
Yeah, that is a very, very cool design. I also like, for the most part, you have the tech roulette stuff, but you kept this very, very concise. I know a lot of folks, when they're making monsters, they can really get overboard and kind of go too crazy. For the most part, you kept this very much a vanilla dragon as they're presented in the monster manual, but you gave them this really cool, I guess you gave them tech travel, which is neat. But you gave them this tech roulette feature that, like, that's the one thing that makes them special, and you kept to that, right? You didn't go crazy with adding all sorts of different stuff. So power to you. The restraint is really hard. It's probably the hardest part of design is knowing that restraint, and I think you did a really good job with it.
A couple of recommendations for refining the design, and for anyone, because I probably will make something that uses this kind of design of creating a power every turn on a random one and then using it multiple times. I would in some way meaningfully incorporate the tech roulette into its multi-attack, just to make it, because it's obviously that this is what it wants to do. Like, I don't think that you will ever, when you're using this monster, use the bite, claw, tail thing, because the tech roulette is like what it's all about. It is in the multi-attack. It says one with its bite or its weapon roulette, and 2 with its claw or tails. I guess that's true. You can also do the legendary. And you could also use, just for other people using it, I assume you know exactly how it works here, but some clarity on language for what the action economy is on using an already existing thing that has appeared into it after it's been summoned. Like, does it just automatically go every turn, or is it an action to fire one once you have it on the thing? Because I think that's a little unclear.
Yeah, I guess. I kind of understood that it was part of the multi-attack action, or its own discrete action, but I
anyway,
can see it both ways.
Just a couple of points of clarity there I think would help you, but this is a cool design.
Yeah, love the name Forge Fire Breath. Great name.
For sure.
This seems like a very, very spooky monster. The fact that it can just teleport through computers and electronics, this could be a very, very cool take on like a future tech dragon monster in a more modern game.
Or I could I could see this as like an end game enemy in like an Eberron or something, you know?
Oh yeah, right. Actually, what are you using it for, V-Bunny? Let us know in the chat. So I'm interested where you're planning on using this monster, or if you just made it for fun. So that was, again, the Tech Dragon by V-Bunny. Thank you, V-Bunny.
Yeah, thanks, V-Bunny. One more thing from V-Bunny here, which is a spell. More.
Sorry, go ahead. Take it away.
Oh, I just said it's a spell. Do you want to do a spell?
Oh, sure. It's a 2nd level abjuration spell. It's called Calbin's Stone Bulwark. It takes an action to cast at a range of 60 feet. It's a concentration spell, and it's for the wizard. A visible wall of earth appears in a 5-foot square. The armor class of this wall is your spell save DC. It is 5 feet wide and 10 feet tall. It must be on a solid surface, and it has hit points equal to your caster level plus your spell casting ability score. Range attacks and spells cannot pass through the wall. Hiding behind the wall provides full cover. It can be destroyed if half of its hit points. If its hit points equals 0, or if hit by spell magic, the wall extends into the ethereal plane, blocking ethereal travel through the wall. At higher levels, the wall size increases by 5 feet on each side for each spell level above second. I love this design. I really like your inclusion of the spell casting ability score as something that starts off pretty high and will continue to grow, but never gets insane. I think that was a really cool choice and an interesting use of a mechanic in the game that's really not used very much.
I would almost want it to be like just that, or like have something that's like a little bit easier to track than level plus spellcasting ability score, because that just seems like a little bit of an awkward add. I do really like the spellcasting ability score, but maybe there's a way, or even like 10 plus your spellcasting ability score, or whatever number you think works for this. But just something that's less moving parts on a spell, which also, the AC is your spell save DC. I guess the AC is your spell save DC isn't hard to track, because that's just, it's just what your spell save DC is, which you always have at your fingertips. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is cool. I would have to look at for balance how it stacks up against Wall of Stone, because I'm not sure what the differences in health and armor class are there.
Well, it's way smaller than Wall of Stone. Way smaller.
Yeah, it's just one small chunk. I know that's the big
I think at second level, this is a very reasonable spell. It has some really cool utility in like dungeon hallways. I love this conceptually. The one thing I would say, I don't know if you need to say that range attacks and spells can't pass through the wall and that hiding behind it provides full cover. I'm not sure if that's necessarily something that needs to be said. Again, the Wall of Stone spell is a pretty good analog, like Pete mentioned earlier. I think some of that is just kind of
subsumed by the nature of creating a
physical wall. And actually, that might be an idea. A physical wall of earth maybe is a description instead of a visible. And you would also add it to Druid list. Yeah, it's gonna be a really cool Druid spell too. Actually, of course, it's Calbin's. I assume this is after your Druid Calbin.
Yeah, Calbin.
Perhaps a different Calbin. I don't know. But very cool spell. I really like it. I think you hit the nail on the head with the higher level casting too.
Yep, very simple. Just a little bit bigger. And I like just the 5 feet makes it very worth it. Like if you have a 10-foot space, casting a 3rd level Calvin Stone Bulwark feels really good. Like,
great name too. Stone Bulwark. Good.
Yeah,
name.
without the Calvin Stone Bulwark does sound like it would just be a spell. Like it wouldn't surprise me if Wizards printed a Stone Bulwark. Let me get Grogan's Uke, because he was right. I had he saw his Uke further up, and then I had the wrong link for it. So
Pete, I'm ashamed of you.
I really goofed it up this time.
Oh, Peter.
Getting it in 10, 9, 8, 7. All right, I got it. Based.
All right, here we go, guys. I'm on the Uke now.
It's an item heavily inspired from the video game Risk of Rain. It's a very rare artifact. An ancient ukulele from the legendary artist born on, it sounds like, insert the name here for your setting. It was said that he was the son of a god, gifted with the power of lightning himself. People say that he was the most humble man, and his music was simply electric. No tests have managed to make the ukulele actually generate electricity. Used with care is what was written on the only piece of paper found alongside the wooden ukulele with its blue box. No one knows how the box got there or what the strange script meant, but what we do know is that it was locked tight. It's an instrument, and once per long rest, you may play this instrument. The next time you score a critical hit after playing the instrument, you deal an additional 3d6 lightning damage.
That's actually very, very cool.
Yeah.
I love that design concept.
Your first crit of the day gets a little bonus on it. I think that's very fun.
I also really like this from like a conceptual level, right? Like the players are bedding down for like a short rest, right? They've holed up in a room in the dungeon, and this is a thing now that a player can think about and say, you know what? I'm going to take out the uke, and I'm gonna play some music. And for like a bard and then a collection of instruments, this could be a cool both role playing but also tactical option for them to employ. I really dig it. Is it really a very rare artifact? Oh, probably not, but it's very
no.
cool.
Well, I don't think it's actually meant to be a very rare artifact. The implication was that that was what was written on the note. That was like the flavor text almost of this item. So I don't know if Grogan intended this to be an artifact tier item.
Another interesting thing that I like, Grogan, Grogan rather, is I like that you included that it was the only piece of paper found alongside a wooden ukulele within a blue box. No one knows how the box got there or what the strange script meant. What we do know is that it was locked tight. I don't know if that's like a Risk of Rain reference there or something, but it's a very cool little, like, a cool little addition, frankly. I like having that idea of here's some added mystique to it. Just a fun little thing to play with.
But,
I feel like a lot of dungeon masters, that's one of the big problems they have is how do they present the magical items? Most of the time they're like, oh, you killed it and you find this thing in the hoard. It's like, all right, well, that was a very anticlimactic, I got a magic item, right? At least this one, there's a little bit of like, oh, piques their interest.
On the subject of things that I'll probably steal, I really like this idea of a once a day buff that you can like put on yourself at the beginning of the day and has that trigger of the crit. Anyway, I really like that design. So great job, Grogan.
Yeah, everybody, you're asking where you'd put this if you want to keep it a rarity. I don't know, somewhere between rare and uncommon.
I was leaning uncommon.
Yeah, it's somewhere between. It doesn't
really
matter
not
too
attunement,
much.
So it gets a slight buff, but probably uncommon for me.
The rarity system in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons is kind of doesn't really matter. You look at like the Ring of Warmth and the Boots of the Winterlands, and one of those is, I mean, way better than the other for a lower rarity. There's just it doesn't really matter. A rarity of magical items. It's just if you want your players to have it in the game, go for it. There are more guidelines.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you so much, Grogan, Grogan, for the submission. Very, very cool little item. I love it. This is another very interesting take.
Yeah, this is a strange one. You've already, I take it you've already read the effect of this spell.
I have. I've read this.
Do you want to take it away? Do you want to read it to everyone else as well?
I love it. Yeah, this is by Featherfail. Welcome, Featherfail. Glad you decided to join us. This spell is called Restore Magic. It's a 3rd level evocation. It takes an action to roll somatic components, range 60 feet, instantaneous, available to sorcerer, yada yada. Doesn't super matter. What matters here is what it does, and it's you attempt to restore a magical effect of 3rd level or lower that was previously dispelled. Make an ability check using your spellcasting ability against the spell save DC of whatever dispelled the effect. On a success, the effect is restored, and you are now considered its caster for all intents and purposes. If the effect had been dispelled for more than an hour, you automatically fail the check. And at higher levels, when you cast it at 4th level or higher, you can restore magical effects that are 1 hour or older per level of the slot above 3rd level, and can restore spells of the level of the slot. Very cool. I love the concept of this in like the context of like a spellcaster duel. That's what makes this so exciting to me, right? It's the sorcerer or the wizard casts, Wall of Force, and you dispel the Wall of Force and then restore it or something. Like a very cool dramatic turnaround in the battle of, their magic is now mine kind of like vibe that doesn't exist in 5e.
Absolutely. The thing that are you familiar with the game Go at all, Jeremy?
I'm actually not. I know.
There's one thing that worries me about this mechanic. As cool as that description is, I am worried about. I believe the term is Ko, but I'm not. Or it's a Komi. I haven't played Go in a little bit, but there's a state that you can get into where you and your opponent find yourself locked into a perpetual state of one of you captures the stones, but in so doing, create an opening for the other person to capture the stone that you used to capture their stone, and it just creates this infinite loop. And there's like a rule in the game where if that shape comes up, if that pattern comes up, you have to wait a turn before you can re-engage with it. And I feel like this almost needs that, because what you don't want is this to just go back and forth. Yeah, there's the limit on it, but I feel like
plus,
if...
I think the action economy does that, right? Because you have to dispel it, then restore it. You know what I mean?
Certainly. It concerns me in the sense of when that becomes the key piece of a battle, I'm worried about that being less engaging than, like, it's really cool, I think, the first time that you get something back, but I think it's less interesting if that becomes the key point where the things keep shifting back and forth around, because then it becomes more of a spell tax to, like, create it, rather than the first dramatic moment of, like, the surprise of, you thought it was gone, but I still have it.
I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like that's a lot less likely with this, frankly. I think just because of the action economy of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons and how dispelling and restoring magic works. You know what I mean?
That's definitely possible. That I'm over concerned there. Anyway, I guess my primary concern about this is I would like to see its use in some way. Figure out a way to expand it a little bit beyond the action economy. I'm sorry, a little bit beyond the direct interaction with the spell magic is kind of what I'm ultimately getting at. I would like to see.
Love it with that though. Like here's the thing, Pete. Hear me out, right? Think of this like you're wandering into a dungeon, right? And you roll your investigation check, and there's a glyph, and you dispel magic on it to keep going. But you're like, you know what? I'd like to have something watching my back, so you restore the magic when you're on the other side, and now that glyph of alarm is your alarm.
I'm with you 100%.
So cool.
I'm with you 100%. That is radical. The thing I want is it to have, like, a little bit more breadth rather than just interacting with a recently dispelled. For example, like
you're thinking maybe like if an ally loses concentration on
exactly the thing I was going to reference, like the potential to dispel an effect that just dispelled by it being done. Like I can see this being restoring magic as just extending the duration of a concentration, essentially. Like, I don't know. I think it could use a touch more breadth, but I do very much like it, and it's a really interesting idea. Like, I've never seen anything like this before.
I haven't either, and I love it. The one thing likewise. I would recommend adding is if the spell requires concentration, you have to do the concentration for that. I think that needs to be added in there for spells like Wall of Force.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could get some weird free Walls of Force in with this. It's like, if I dispel my own Wall of Force, but then restore it,
I don't have to concentrate on my Wall of Force, and then
there could be some funky stuff. I want to say, Warden Tabriz, welcome. Thank you so much for the follow. We greatly appreciate it. And I saw V-Bunny was talking in chat about the Tech Dragon. I used the Tech Dragon as a semi-final boss/challenge for my players in a previous campaign. The frightening presence / shotgun knockback was very strong, and the players didn't have to fight this thing. All they were supposed to do was save a woman from the dragon it was holding prisoner. Because he treasured her knowledge as an assistant and didn't want to let her go. That kind of sounds like, what's his name in The Legend of Korra? What's his... Shuli and... Tarrant? No.
Julian Varric.
Varric, Christ. I love that concept. It's very cool. They ended up negotiating with the dragon as it worked as a challenge. That's very cool, V-Bunny. That happens all the time when you're DMing. You come up with all these crazy mechanics, and you're like, I'm so excited to use this monster. And then the players, like, want to, like, parlay with it, and you're like, oh, shit. You know what? Okay. And that's a sign of a good DM right there, is being able to roll with what your players are excited to do. Yeah.
Being okay with that.
That's really cool. I love that. And I love this spell by Featherfail. Thank you so much, Featherfail, for sharing.
That's a really cool idea, Feather. On the subject of cool ideas, we have one more from Featherfail, and if you haven't seen the art that they posted that goes along with it, I don't think it's Featherfail's art, and Feather, if that is untrue, let me know, and I apologize, because it's very impressive. But it's a very cool picture that they chose for these adorable, like, they're just like these fluffy cats with wings. They're like butterfly wings. They're delightful. But this is a fluffin, a cute monster.
Yeah, it's real fun. I know a lot of stuff that he was that they were saying about the Fluffin, that it seeks out orphans and those in need of sense via its empathic sense. It just constantly has a healing snuggle. I mean, it's like it has a spell called an ability called Healing Snuggle.
The thing I liked about the
Which is
Fluffin
just
was the not
beautiful.
today reaction, which is the Fluffin can use its reaction to dash into a space adjacent to a dying creature that it can see within 30 feet of it and use its healing snuggle. Which the only thing, because I think the Fluffin is decidedly intended to be a companion monster for like a party. The only thing that I would put on it was put a times per day on the healing snuggle. If that is
Well,
the
and
intent of it.
actually, I was going to say the opposite. Like, a lot of people, when they come to play 5th edition D&D, right, they don't want a super lethal game, right? They don't actually want, they want to be challenged, they want there to be drama and risk of tension, but sometimes they don't want their characters to actually have a chance to die. Maybe retreat, but not die. And I think this is a really cool way of doing that, right? Of using a fun, goofy thing. Everyone knows goofy and fun. And then, when things start to get really really crappy, you fail your 3rd death saving throw, the cute fluffy thing comes and, saves you, and you don't feel as bad. And I don't know. I think for that purpose, I don't know if it needs a limit. Personally.
I guess it all depends on the manner in which like I said, if you're going to give a player like
10 of these,
well, not even 10 of them. I was just saying, like, if this is entirely just a GM, if you're going to give a player access to like use this creature as a companion, for example, like this is the kind of thing I could see one of my players, if like one of them was playing a Beastmaster, they'd be like, "Can the Fluffin be my Beastmaster animal?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, absolutely. If that's what you want to do, you can do that." But just the potential, I just see like if a player had this stat block, because sometimes that's what happens, that 1d10 hit points without healing would just be like an instant heal out of combat every time, which might not be
true. It's like, I'm gonna snuggle with my Fluffin for 10 minutes.
Yeah. That's the only thing I'm worried about with the healing snuggle isn't like it removing risk, but your players trying to game healing snuggle.
I feel like if you put a Fluffin in the party and your players try and game the Fluffin, it's like, come on, guys! Like, what are you doing? Anyway, I love what you built here.
It's delightful. It's absolutely delightful.
Yeah. Delightful is, I think, the optimal word. Featherfell, thank you so much.
Thanks, Featherfell.
I really appreciate you sharing it. Now we have another one. Pete, is this who? Do you know who this is?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to write the name.
The Hidden Observer.
This is a reveal. Is what this? I didn't forget. It was the big reveal that this was from Ankava. This is Hilgard's Hidden Observer, a 1st level conjuration spell. Would you like to take this one, Jeremy? Or would you like me to?
Pete, you take this one. I feel like I've been taking all of them.
Have you?
I definitely rest.
I took some. Jeremy, go, work, read. Hilgard's Hidden Observer is a 1st level conjuration spell. It's also a ritual. It has a casting time of 1 action and a range of 120 feet. The verbal, somatic, and material components the material component is a glass lens. It has a duration of an hour, and it's intended for Bard, Warlock, and Wizard. Let's get into the meat here. This spell creates an invisible, mindless, shapeless, tiny sensory access point that relays its vision to you at your command until the spell ends. The observer springs into existence in an unoccupied space within range. It has an AC of 10, 1 hit point, and a passive perception of 15, and it can't attack. If it drops to 0 hit points, the spell ends. The observer may be commanded to assist its caster, giving advantage on perception checks involving vision. Once on each of your turns as a bonus action, you can mentally command the observer to move up to 25 feet in any direction, including through small gaps that would admit a tiny creature, and view a scene or keep target creature or item within view. The observer has normal vision for a member of the caster's race, including dark vision for casters with that racial attribute, and can hover. Once you give the command, the observer keeps the scene or target in view to the best of its ability until your next command. If you command the observer to view something that would move it more than 120 feet away from you, the spell ends when it reaches that distance. So sort of a camera bug that you can put on things, which is
Interesting.
a cool way of doing it. I like the what's the term? It just feels like I like it. It almost feels like a programmed, like a
It's
programmed arcane eye in a sense, but not obviously quite as powerful as arcane eye.
yeah. I think the thing that I'm running into, the confusion I'm having, is where. So it relays vision to you at your command. I guess I'm just running into a bit of confusion as to where this really differs from Arcane Eye. Obviously, this has an armor class; it can be destroyed. I really like that you gave it a passive perception as a cool way of saying, yeah, you can sneak past this. This isn't as all-seeing as like an Arcane Eye might be. Yeah, I guess I'm just a little, because in a lot of ways it's pretty similar. I mean, within 120 feet, it is an Arcane Eye, right? I mean, for all realistic intents and purposes.
The like I don't know, like the implication
Based on
to
the
me,
Arcane Unseen Servant. Okay.
okay, yeah. Well, the implication to me was that this thing almost has like a land speed. I didn't think of this as something that could like, I didn't think of this as something that could just like fly around and just go to any space. But I guess that as it's worded, you could do that. So it might be worth specifying whether or not this can like hover. And the one thing is it does seem to take up physical space because you gave it an armor class and hit points. So one thing that I think might make it a little bit too powerful for a first level spell would be that, like, I mean, it's invisible, so in most practical scenarios in any early level encounter, it just functions kind of like the Arcane Eye spell, but with the extra ability to kind of like almost move on its own and give chase and follow something like that. Which that's the thing that I like about it, as opposed to the Arcane Eye, is that it's like a bug that you can put on stuff and it will follow around with it. But that's the thing I think that differentiates this.
Yeah, and V-Bunny, I see you were saying that it can't fly. Things that can fly indicate so. That's not necessarily the case. Arcane Eye, for example, doesn't. It says it can hover in the air, sure, but it also says this can move 25 feet in any direction, which flies also up. So I don't know.
Yeah, the specification on that I think would be helpful. Just an easier way of phrasing the has normal vision for a member of the caster's race would be gains the benefit of any special senses of its caster, would I think be the conventional language to use there, which might
and you
just clean a couple things up there.
For the example of spells like Dark Vision. If a player casts Dark Vision on themselves, that wouldn't actually go through the Hidden Observer. Anyway.
Yeah, I think this is going in a cool direction. I think you need to maybe find a place to like differentiate it a little bit more from the Arcane Eye spell, and then just make it a little bit more clear, like how it functions in terms of like the way that it ambulates and moves through the space. Yeah, pretty cool.
Frosty saying, based on your list, I assume you're very rightfully done going over the monks. Yeah, I mean, we checked them all out. I think this is actually, but I don't want to go too far off the Frosty. Just a second. I do really like this conceptually. I like the idea of having a lower level observation kind of deal. It just might be a little much at this point. Like it's going to be a little too strong for first level. I think having a lot of these things with the limit of 120 feet might be okay for like a second level spell, but at first level, it seems to be quite a bit.
Yeah. The other thing that comes to my mind is sort of a comparison point is the Find Familiar spell, which lets you switch back and forth between the vision as a first level spell. I think it has more range, but also has the much more significant downside of...
No, it's 100 feet for a Find Familiar.
Is that all the distances on vision? Okay, so it's about the same. It's about the same range. The obvious downside of that being that you can see the familiar. Like any player any NPC can like be aware that they're being tracked by the spell. So that's the big difference there. Another one to look at for comparison would be like Clairvoyance, which creates this at like a single point.
Yeah.
And that's like a 3rd level spell still too. So in terms of wizards, just very highly rate. I actually think that Clairvoyance is like overcharged in a pretty major way, but wizards very highly rates the ability to like look ahead of things, just because of the way that I think the reason for that is actually because they want 5e or just Dungeons and Dragons in general to be very built around dungeons and like the ability to look ahead in a room. So I feel like there's a lot of campaigns where that power is not as strong as Wizards evaluates it, but if you're playing like a module, I think it's really good.
Absolutely. I would agree. All right. So that's a very interesting spell. It's always really hard when you take the effects of a higher level spell and you try and transpose a kind of lesser version of it, or a lower level version of it, rather. It's not lesser necessarily, but it's always a really tough nut to crack. But a pretty solid attempt there. I really like what you've done so far, Angstaza, and I'm interested to see where you go with it.
Absolutely. Let's look at this last thing here in the just to address Frosty Pirate. With regards to the monks, just because it takes a long time to go over a subclass, we've done it a couple times. We're probably going to be done looking at those two guys. But if you want more feedback,
if you've got specific questions, feel free to PM one of us. But
yeah, certainly. Let's look at the fire newt. I also forgot to write the name here. It's another big reveal. It's by
Frosty Pirate.
A last-minute entry on the fire newt. And this is a race they said that they were making for an homebrew campaign that's coming up. And I like fire newt, so I'm excited to see what you put together here. Why don't I take away, Jeremy, and let you continue your rest for a moment. I'm sure we'll switch back and forth a couple times.
Please
you can find fire newt societies in areas that contain hot springs, volcanic activity, or similar extremely hot and wet conditions. There, humanoid amphibians live in an evil and militaristic theocracy that reveres elemental fire. I didn't quite think that was going to be the direction, but I like it. That's just a brisk write-up for the traits. It's not the... I imagine you'll have a little bit more when you're in the kind of finished state on this guy. Let's do the basics really quick. For ability scores, you get +1 int and +2 dex. That's standard, a 1 and a 2. Age, 50 years, maybe? Alignment, they tend towards lawful evil. Isolation and fear of outsiders often prorogues violence towards other races. Now, this is obviously for a homebrew world, and that might be right for your homebrew world. I'm going to give a piece of advice for people that aren't...
Fire newts are an actual monster in what is the book?
This would technically be considered a monstrous race. I know that I like fire newts. I don't want to say they're cute, but they kind of are cute. You know what I mean?
They're kind of adorable.
Do you know what I mean by that? Like they're not cute, but they're definitely cute.
He's cute. I think he's cute.
It's a cute newt.
Wow, I never noticed in this. You can actually see like their ribs and stuff in there. That's really whack.
Oh,
wild.
Geez. Yeah, I've never actually looked at that up.
We're back to fire newt.
I've never looked at that up that close either. But yeah, okay, so the thing I wanted to say was that's probably right for a homebrew setting. I would always just make sure if you're designing a race for everyone that you just put on there some kind of thing, like but sometimes they're not. Like any kind of qualifier as to say that you don't have to play the race as such. You choose a fire.
Frosty was saying that they created this for their own homebrew setting, so that's understandable.
And that's why I specified it beforehand that was the thing. I'm saying like if you were designing this for everyone game, you'd want to do
Warden Tabriz. Maybe I'll place a range with this when he dies. Who knows? When being the operative word. Oh no, I'm very sorry. I hope they don't die. Oh boy. Um,
Size medium, 30-foot speed, 30-foot swim speed, amphibious, can breathe both air and water. Can breathe both bear and otter.
Pete's losing his mind, guys.
I really
let me
like
take
can
it.
breathe both bear and otter. Yeah, take endothermic metabolism. This is the first kind of meteor feature here.
Wild name. You have to take in a considerable amount of heat to fuel your body. Typically, a fire newt must bathe in boiling hot water at least once every 10 days, or risk falling into hibernation and becoming unconscious until warmed. You're resistant to fire damage, and you are immune to fire damage from sources of hot water and the negative effects of environments with extreme heat. Very cool. Very, very cool. You
I'm,
also get a feature called Skitter, which is, as a bonus action, you can skitter on the ground on all fours. As a result, you ignore difficult terrain until the end of your next turn. And
That's
you give them
interesting.
spit fire. You can spit fire at a creature within 10 feet. The creature must make a saving throw or take 2d8 fire damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. Xenophobic nationalists. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Someone's been playing some 4X games. Anyway, I think the big one here to talk about is the endothermic metabolism, right?
Certainly. I would also consider for Spitfire doing con instead of dex if we're going by convention.
Yeah.
Because usually anything that involves like a breath or anything that's produced by the body is based on con. Even though dex is would be better synergy with the class, con would be more standard. But that's just a convention thing. So yeah, let's talk endothermic metabolism now.
Well, first, the one thing I think you missed is just a little bit of language. You should say immune to the effects of fire damage from sources of water and are considered naturally adapted to, and I think extreme heat. I think is the term you want to use because that's the language. I think the Goliath has that, so it might be worth to look on that one. I really like this. I like this limited fire immunity. I think giving the limited immunity,
situational
really well.
immunity.
Yeah, very cool. Some cool environmental impacts of where that's useful, or against like a dragon turtle or something. Very, very cool. I love this. This is very cool. Just
it doesn't really work, I think, for the flavor of the fire newt, but I could see that being like almost from sources of water or lava, even. Like I could see them also bathing in something like that.
From liquids, maybe.
Just to like give it a little bit more scope, because it's cool enough that I want to see it come up. And again, this is with the asterisk. I wouldn't do that. You have to be in boiling hot water at least once every 10 days, which isn't too bad. Isn't too bad as far as drawback goes. It's like almost even good, not in a homebrew cam.
It's based on the grung, right? Like the grung race from the one grung above supplement has a similar thing of having to be in water. I get it.
Yeah. I tend to shy away from stuff like that, but especially in a home, there's nowhere that it's more right than in your homebrew game.
Absolutely.
Where you want the fire newts to be a particular thing. So in that regard, obviously, yes. But
very cool. One of the things I really like here is I can see that you tempered yourself a little bit on the Spitfire, making it 2d8, whereas that's not that strong. And I think that's okay. I think that it's fine that it's not that powerful.
I think it's actually a really cool spot where you left it.
Yeah. I think it's a really good idea. A lot of aspiring creators and homebrewers will get really excited about a feature like that and just make it way too strong. But even giving a character, like for example in the Dragonborn, they have a breath weapon, and their breath weapons really aren't that good. And that's fine. It doesn't make the Dragonborn any worse. They just have this thing that they can also do, right? Tabaxi have claw attack weapons that do a d4 slashing damage.
Yep.
Those aren't very strong, but it's still a really cool thing that they have that makes them unique.
Well, I would also say that
it's good to do that.
I'd also say that like the 2d8 at level 1 is that's
actually good. Yeah,
it's actually very strong. And I like the idea of your fire newt being a fire newt kind of almost carrying you at the early game. Like when you first start out, you're spitting fire a lot, but as you train and improve as like say a fighter, you become better at fighting. So now instead of just using your spitfire every turn, you're now striking twice with a weapon every turn. Like I think that that's actually a kind of a cool progression, which also mimics the way the game grows. In that it's
Absolutely.
powerful at early levels because it's your race, as races are more impactful at early levels, and then it's just all about your class. I don't know. I like that design. Is a long way
Yeah.
of saying that.
I do too, and I know you were having a lot of trouble fighting with the wanting to give them fire immunity, and I think you did a really, really great job. I just wanted to reiterate, I think that giving them the situational fire immunity was a really good compromise of still keeping that flavor that you wanted of they're immune to fire, without giving them the full brunt and power that fire immunity would give to the race. Very, very cool.
Yep, and
Right, tactful choice.
just on the whole thing. I mean, this would get the balance point if we were layering it out fully.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's well put together in terms of its balance. So great job, Frosty.
The skidder, the one thing I might add is you say all difficult terrain, and conventionally, if something ignores difficult terrain, it ignores difficult terrain from non-magical sources. I really don't care. Like in my games, I don't really worry about that distinction. If something ignores difficult terrain, it ignores difficult terrain.
But you're deaf wrong about the deck save. Whatever works for you. We're just talking about the convention on it, which would be con.
It would be con, correct.
We're deaf right that wizards would have made it con, but Dex
true.
might be right for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. This is a very cool race. I like it a lot.
Likewise,
It's gonna be a lot of fun to play.
Which, Jeremy, I think that puts us at our next little bit here, which is
all right.
Yeah,